August 25, 2025, United States of America. The chain of command breaks in one night. The Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, and Coast Guard cease coordination and begin to act independently. Why? Because now each of these forces seeks to take control of the country. There is no external help, no enemy in sight, nor nuclear weapons. Only the forces already stationed on U.S. territory. The most powerful army on Earth becomes its own worst enemy. And yes, this is a hypothetical scenario. It was built with the utmost realism that I could invest. Could everything have turned out differently? Certainly. This is just the version I chose for this story. So let's break down the situation by branches of the armed forces. Let's start with the Army. This is the largest of five, with 452,000 active servicemen. Most of them are concentrated in Texas, Georgia, North Carolina, Colorado, and Washington. Their equipment is heavy and loud: Abrams tanks, Bradley fighting vehicles, HIMARS rocket systems, M777 howitzers, Apache helicopters, and CH-47 Chinook transport helicopters. The Army controls several key ammunition depots, but the main fuel, such as aviation fuel JP-8, is owned, stored, and distributed by the Defense Logistics Agency. Nevertheless, they have local control over places like Red River, McAllister, and Fort Liberty. Their logistics chain is not just strong, it is internally resilient. This is their advantage: dominance on the ground and long-term support. But they are slow to adapt, vulnerable to attacks, and suffer from a lack of fuel. Next in line is the Air Force. 321,000 active military personnel stationed at over 30 major air bases: Nellis, Eglin, Wright-Patterson, Joint Base San Antonio. Their strength lies not in numbers, but in altitude. They operate F-22 Raptor fighters, F-35A, stealth bombers B-2, old B-52s, MQ-9 Reaper drones. They utilize AWACS radar surveillance aircraft and the ABMS battle management system, which integrates all their targeting and tracking into a real-time network. In this scenario, they quietly absorb all cosmic power, which means satellites, thermal tracking, early warning systems, suppression, and complete global surveillance. Their strength is instant, coordinated destruction. Their weakness is that they cannot hold on to what they have not destroyed. And every second, fuel, spare parts, and ammunition that they cannot easily replace burn in the air. Now let's move on to the fleet. 337,000 active servicemen. Complete dominance of the coastline from Norfolk to San Diego, from Pearl Harbor to Kings Bay. They have floating fortresses, aircraft carriers, Aegis-equipped destroyers, missile cruisers, nuclear submarines, and F-35C fighters. They strike from the sea, then disappear, recharge, and attack again. But on land, they are fragile. If the aircraft carriers cannot get closer, the whole system will collapse. They do not control the land, they just make it dangerous. The Marine Corps is made for chaos. 169,000 Marines are scattered across Camp Pendleton, Camp Luna, and other bases. Their equipment is focused on speed rather than durability. Amphibious combat vehicles, M777 artillery, short takeoff F-35B fighters, and tiltrotor helicopters like the CH-53 and Osprey can deploy troops almost anywhere. Raider battalions act swiftly and disappear. They are mobile, aggressive, and deliver devastating blows. However, their success depends on the Navy, which provides transport, fuel, and supplies. Without this support, time begins to run out. Next up, the Coast Guard. With 40,500 active employees, it is distributed through a fine network, but in the right places: Florida, the Bay, California, New York. They have no tanks or fighters, but they control some of the most valuable areas: bridges, ports, rivers, and straits. Their ships are fast and the boats are maneuverable, with crews that know exactly how to slow down the enemy. They also operate internal radar stations and communication networks that others often ignore. They are not made for victory, but to waste your time. And now, all five branches of the armed forces simultaneously begin their action. Without warning, without negotiations, only synchronized orders and a battlefield as vast as the country. The first movement of the Army is by the book, to fortify positions and hold them. From Fort Cavazos and Fort Liberty, they begin to expand their borders, capturing fuel depots, munitions factories, transport hubs, and food distribution centers. They block interstate bottlenecks and close mountain passes. The Appalachians and the Rocky Mountains become natural fortresses. They establish artillery positions, air defense systems, and armored patrols. Armored vehicles on the ground, Apache helicopters in the sky. They do not seek a quick victory. Their goal is to wait. The Air Forces do not wait. For several hours, they deploy the Raptor and B-2 fighters for coordinated attacks on naval airfields, Army convoys, and Navy radar posts, while simultaneously seizing Space Force assets in Colorado Springs and at Vandenberg Air Force Base. This gives them control over the air, satellites, drones, and real-time data from above. Their doctrine is simple. Win in 72 hours, deliver a crushing blow, destroy communications, supply lines, and make the enemy collapse before fuel and ammunition run out. Meanwhile, the Navy retreats into deeper waters. Airstrike groups move to both coasts, submarines vanish. Aegis destroyers establish no-fly zones over critically important ports. They strike Air Force runways, coastal bridges, and civilian fuel depots. And then they do what no one else can. They refuel and resupply at sea. This means that fuel and missiles are delivered in open waters. No base is required. It is not infinite, but enough to continue the fight long after the Air Force begins to weaken. The Marine Corps switches to full radar mode. From bases in Pendleton and Lejeune, multi-role helicopters and amphibious vessels strike Army depots, Air Force radar stations, and even Navy storage facilities. They are unrestrained, attacking and disappearing. They deploy F-35 fighters along the coast, dropping artillery. Even this is hard to disable in the landscape. Each mission aims to exhaust the enemy. They understand that time is against them, so they act more decisively. The Coast Guard retreats into the shadows. They sabotage ports, collapse drawbridges, jam radio signals, seize internal waterways like shipping on the Mississippi. The Marine Corps attempts to land near Tampa. Denied. The Navy tries to dock in Miami but is blocked. The Coast Guard does not win battles, it prevents them. However, it does not have the resources to mine the entire bay. Therefore, the delays they create are powerful, but temporary. On the third day, the battlefield looks completely different from the map. This is a living canvas of sabotage attacks that slowly ignite. In the Appalachian Mountains, Sea Raiders attack a remote Army artillery site at night. They act quickly, disabling guns, setting trucks on fire, but a Reaper drone spots them. After a few minutes, Apache Army helicopters approach the site. M777 batteries are aimed at the target. The entire pass explodes. The Raiders retreat but manage to rig Army fuel trucks with C4 explosives. The explosion halts a key convoy route for 3 days. In the sky above the bay, the Air Force begins a bombing raid on the Navy's infrastructure near Norfolk. B-52 bombers fly low, accompanied by F-22 fighters, but the Aegis cruiser spots them early. SM-6 missiles soar upward. F-35C fighters take off from an aircraft carrier and intercept them in flight. The Navy terminals sustain damage. The Air Force loses planes. Both sides suffer losses, but neither breaks. In Florida, a naval landing operation fails even before it begins. The Coast Guard teams have already mined the bay, destroyed bridges, and disrupted communications. The Marines are forced to change their route and directly encounter an armored unit of the Army advancing from Fort Benning. They abandon the operational post. The Coast Guard does not open fire, but the mission still fails. Meanwhile, the Air Force establishes orbital superiority. Para-rescue units take full control of the Space Force satellites, thermal tracking, target reconnaissance, drone transmissions, and secure communications. From this moment, the Air Force sees everything, but seeing does not mean holding. They cannot hold cities, cannot control roads, and their refuelers quickly exhaust fuel just to maintain fighter jet flights. The first week ends. Everyone is struggling, but some suffer more than others. The Air Force still dominates the sky, but the stock of bombs that make this power significant is running low. Precision-guided munitions are nearly finished. Maintenance is lagging, and fuel is consumed faster than it can be replenished. The Navy controls the coast. Their submarines are hunting. Aircraft carriers are launching sorties, but their forces are stretched thin. There are almost no troops on land, and influence over the interior territories has nearly been lost. The Marine infantry continues to move, but they have almost run out of fuel, ammunition, and food. Without the support of the Navy, their raids become smaller and riskier. They no longer change the course of events, just trying to stay in the fight. The Coast Guard continues to block ports and waterways, but does not advance. They can delay the battle, but cannot win it. The Army continues to advance. It has suffered losses, endured airstrikes, lost supply points due to raids, but controls agricultural lands, highways, and cities. They control fuel, food, and roads. Their Abrams tanks keep moving. Their artillery is still firing, and their convoys do not stop. In the third week, they begin the offensive, reclaiming ports, capturing airfields and coastal towns. No one is able to stop them anymore. The Air Force controlled everything from the sky. The fleet struck all targets. The Marine Corps destroyed everything in their path. The Coast Guard thwarted all attempts, but the Army just kept arriving. In the end, that was enough. What if one of the most modern armies in history attacked a modern U.S. military base?